Visual literacy and creativity are not just skills for art students, they are life skills. Being visually literate means learning to truly see, not just to look. In a world filled with images and advertisements and screens, this ability helps students to think critically about what they see and how they communicate it in a meaningful way. It also teaches us to understand the power of images, symbols, and design. And these skills helps us to shape how we interpret the world around us. Creativity allows us to cultivate beauty, empathy, and renewal in a world that often values speed over substance. So the definition for visual literacy is the ability to read and understand images. Like reading words, it's about interpreting what an image communicates. You will learn how to recognize symbols, colors, and composition, and understand what the artist is saying. And then also how to explain how images influence our emotions or ideas. So in short, visual literacy means understanding the language of images. Visual analysis is slightly different. It's the process of studying an artwork to understand how and why it was made. And you do this by looking at the art elements, line, color, shape, texture, tone, form, and space. And also then using that to notice the design principles, balance, contrast, rhythm, unity, and emphasis. You also do this by interpreting the meaning or the message. In short, visual analysis is using your visual literacy skills to explain art in detail. So a good example of visual analysis would be looking at Vincent van Gogh's The Starry Night. I think first of all, this painting is a true reflection that you can't really separate the artist from the artwork. Let's look at the subject matter. Van Gogh painted The Starry Night while staying in a mental asylum in France. The work depicts a sweeping night sky above a quiet village dominated by swirling stars, a bright moon, and a towering cypress tree in the foreground. The scene is not a literal copy of what he saw, but rather an imaginative and expressive vision combining memory, observation, and emotions. When we look at the elements of art, line is one of the first things that we recognize when we look at this painting. There's some strong curving and swirling lines creating a sense of motion in the sky. The strokes are thick and directional, guiding the viewer's eye around the canvas. The stars and moon are painted as circular orbs radiating light, while the village below has a more geometric angular shape that contrasts with the fluidity of the sky. And I think this is a good example of shape and form in the painting. Van Gogh used bold contrast between the deep blues of the sky and the bright yellows and the whites of the stars. And in this color palette, he emphasizes the emotional intensity rather than realism. Texture is also quite visible in this painting, and you can see the brush strokes and the thick impasto application of paint give this work a tactile dynamic surface. The texture itself becomes part of the emotional expression. Space in this painting and the composition of balance, depth, and flatness is very prominent. The village appears grounded while the sky feels expansive, almost overwhelming in scale. And the cypress tree connects the earth to the heavens, bringing the foreground and the background together. The next step would be obviously looking at the principles of art, and you can definitely see movement, contrast, balance, and emphasis, as well as harmony and unity in this painting. The swirling patterns in the sky conveys a restless flowing movement, echoing Van Gogh's emotional turbulence, and the bright luminous orbs of light stand out dramatically against the darker blues and blacks of the night sky. If we have to look at an interpretation, and definitely one of the interpretations and a personal interpretation, and I think something that really connects me with this painting, it's this dark church that has been widely interpreted as Van Gogh's statement on faith and his personal struggles with religion. He once studied to become a pastor, and Van Gogh had a very complex, often painful relationship with organized religion. The church is dark and lifeless, and it stands in contrast to all the glowing homes and the beautiful colors around it. It suggests the human warmth and community may provide a lot more light, where something like institutional religion especially does not. Meanwhile, the heavens above, alive with swirling stars and radiant energy, dominates the scene. This could symbolize Van Gogh's belief that true spiritual power was found in nature and in the cosmos, rather in the human institutions. The church's central but unlit presence highlights the contrast. Faith for Van Gogh was no longer tied to buildings, but to the infinite sky above. So I think in such a big way, the Starry Night is almost a kind of prayer, one that doesn't come from a pulpit, but from the heart of somebody still searching for peace. In the workplace, creativity has become one of the most valuable abilities we can have. Companies are looking for people who can think differently, solve problems with imagination, and communicate ideas visually and clearly. This is such a powerful and vital skill that all students, teachers, and people in the workplace, corporate or creative, should practice and develop, not only to become better at what they do, but also to become better human beings.